Hi, I'm Devana, your Christian womanhood and femininity life coach. And I wanted to come to you today to talk about the quality of life that we make for ourselves and how you are ultimately responsible for the quality of your life. Now, a lot of things come along and they present you one situation or another. They might make some challenges, but ultimately, you are responsible for how you set the quality of your life. So, one of the biggest things that I've come to notice is that when I take responsibility for the quality of my life, it's because I am surrendered to God. And in that, God leads me, God guides me, His people, His women, you, all of us. The Bible talks about in Psalm 16:11, you make known to me the path in life. In your presence there is fullness of joy, and in your right hand there are pleasures forevermore. Surrendering to God really helps you see the world through that lens, and then being able to trust Him, right? So you can, at the fork in the road, decide on faith, not fear. And that's one of the things that Christians have that we hold beautifully and we stand in. And when we go and we present the gospel to other people, it's one of the things that we're offering them, like the perks of relationship with God. One of them that a lot of people who are outside and are considering God and coming to God may not even know is that there's a different kind of like peace here when you rely on God. So that is one of the things. There's plenty that I wanted to talk about, but one of them is that the other thing is that most people, when they don't understand that you are meant to go to God and you are meant to design your own quality of life, you are meant to be responsible for your mental health, your emotions, your state of being, physically, all of these things. A lot of us outsource that responsibility to a relationship, an opposite sex partner who we put the pressure on to then be the quality of life for us, to then be our happiness, right? So one of the things that we should talk about is that it's not your partner's responsibility to make you happy. Now, I know this is controversial and people talk about it all the time, and yes, it's like twofold, but all in all, you are responsible for your own joy. You are responsible for being able to spark joy in life, to shake down dopamine. I work in the field of addiction specialist, and when I help people understand what addiction is, a part of what comes up is the hedonic set point. Now stay with me, I'm not going to go full nerd, but like a little, okay? So there's this line in the body where we experience pleasure. Everything below this is not experienced as pleasure, but everything that peaks above this is, right? And so the things peak above it, and then the higher they peak, our body understands this is good for survival, and so we lock it into memory. Right? So, but the peaks are what we call happiness, right? So sometimes we peak so high that there's so much dopamine released that it actually becomes like euphoria, right? You know how sometimes when you laugh real hard, and then it feels like a little bit like, ooh, right? That is the body's natural way of releasing a flood of dopamine that is a little bit euphoric, right? So that is what we usually call like happiness or pleasure. But there is the option to have peaks of happiness or have running consistent joy. And when we grow up in America, we get this kind of fairy tale idea that we're supposed to live happily ever after, and there's supposed to be this other person on the other end who is like juggling and juggling and like twirling plates and like on a unicycle, making our life happy, right? Like that's that Cat in the Hat reference where he's like doing all the things to entertain the kids, but that's not realistic. It's not sustainable, and it feels like pressure for the other person. who's in a relationship with somebody who doesn't have the capacity to spark their own running joy, but puts the burden on the other person to do it consistently. No one can do that. Like, no one can do that over time to continuously make you happy. You must be the one who surrenders to God, who understands that life is not about just happiness. There are going to be some times in your life where there's sorrow, hard times. It's not always going to feel like happy. But if we have a running sense of us being able to spark our own joy because of the way that we construct our internal state of being, then we're not waiting on circumstances on the outside to make us happy. No circumstance is going to be continuous, right? Not through the course of time. Nothing is going to last. Only God will be a continuous source, like a tree. When you're a tree planted by the water, He will be a continuous source. And His mercies are new every day, to where you can have running contentment with Him. Now, our partners are not meant to come into our lives and wreak havoc and rob us of joy, but they also cannot bring happiness. So this is one of the things that we have to know solid, because when we don't know this and we expect for them to bring joy into our lives and to be responsible for the happiness, even if we are so codependent, even if we are addicted to relationships and we're doing it that way, if they bring the happiness with them, they also take it with them when they go. And this is a toxic roller coaster cycle that you don't need in your life, right? The other person can feel the burden, like the weight of, I have to make them happy. How will I make them happy today? How can I make them happy in the next week? What did I do? How did I fail, right? If your internal emotional state rests on how your partner shows up, you're doing it wrong. And I think that we think that this is a real thing, and it's in part responsible for our high divorce rate. A lot of people will walk away from a marriage that is fixable, a marriage that is, you just need to learn how to be your own joy. You just need to have some conversations. It's salvageable, right? It's not a lemon. You don't need to throw it away. You just have to have the understanding that there's a different way to construct some things, and maybe you need to dismantle the whole mindset and then start over. Maybe get some counseling, maybe do some other things, but not every situation needs to be, I'm not happy. So when they introduced, no fault divorce, when they introduced no fault divorce, and then they started to say, if you're not happy here, you can end the marriage, it impacted the marriage rate. And when families aren't together, it impacts and it has a ripple effect in the man, the woman, and the children. I don't know if we take enough time to really take a look at the impact of broken families. Intact families make it to where people, the man, the woman, and the children, have a better shot at feeling satisfaction in life, at being content, at achieving goals, at not being depressed, at sparking joy, all of these things for all of the people, right? So the man's life is better, the woman's life is better, the children's life is better. And then when this system of marriage is dismantled, then it is really hard on all of the people, no matter how much they cope. Some of them can make it look easy. Sometimes you can have a good presentation, but the fact of the matter is that marriage is a tearing of a covenant, right? And divorce is a tearing of a covenant. And it's a really difficult thing for all of the people to deal with, no matter how well they cope, no matter how it looks on the outside. But it really hurts children who don't have the vocabulary to tell you how damaged they are by the whole thing, right? And so people should know that going into the thing, right? going into marriage, going into just doing life, period. Marriage in and of itself, coupling in and of itself will not be the thing that brings you happiness. If you aren't a standalone whole person going into the situation, and you're meeting with another standalone whole person, you're going to meet resistance and have a whole lot of tough times ahead, right? So I always say, like, 1 + 1 = 1. One whole person and another whole person come together, join into a covenant with God, and then they equal 1. But if both of you have come in with a mindset that is, usually the woman is like, oh, he will complete me, and then I will be whole, and then we'll live happily ever. And the man is thinking, oh, she will never change. It will always be like this. Like, some people from both ends of it come in with a like erroneous or like a completely wrong mindset of how this thing should work. I know that I did, right? I know that I did. And so, and the reason why I say these two things is because I see a whole lot of people, especially like right now, being a single woman, a coupled woman, an engaged woman who's going into being married. I see a lot of people, I have a lot of friends who are single, but a lot of them are like, being challenged with the questions. Why don't you have a man? Why aren't you getting married? Why aren't you this and why aren't you that? And I see a lot of people opting out of it altogether. And then I hear them say, I'm happy by myself, or I don't need a man to make me happy, or I don't need a woman to. And so for some reason, either the question becomes standalone happiness or have a partner who makes you happy. And those two things, I don't know why people tend to opt for relationships as a source of happiness, right? So sometimes people do other things like gambling, gaming, drugs, but for the most part, a lot of women I see are either pressured to be in a relationship or are looking for one to bring their happiness. And so I wanted to talk about like really you being the one who comes to God, has a sense of contentment, and you are responsible for your happiness, from mental, emotional, spiritual, just holistic happiness that is yours and yours alone because you constructed it and you are healthy. And the truth of the matter is that in and of itself is going to be the thing that later might lead you to a relationship where you find contentment. Now look, we all know that it's not a rough thing to be coupled. It's not. You can throw a rock into a crowd and find somebody to be coupled with, especially temporarily. So, but I'm talking about long-term contentment for you as a person, as a self, as a standalone person, and then considering whether or not you go into a relationship. But still being a standalone whole person first, and that being about you separate. So if you are struggling with having quality of life, with being a single person who is able to level up in their singleness or feel content, I am a life coach, and I work with women who want to level up and be the best possible version of themselves. I am a Christian woman who is who chooses to operate in femininity, and that's the lens that I do the life coaching through. But it is about, the life coaching overall is about you becoming the best version of you and showing up in a way that is intentional. So if you are interested in working with me, my name is Devana, and I am your Christian womanhood and femininity life coach.